OnePlus's first two smartphones were labeled as flagship killers by the young Chinese startup. They were both marketed as budget-friendly devices that boasted powerful hardware for the Android enthusiast. In late 2015, OnePlus unveiled its third smartphone. This time around, the company took a new approach aimed at creating a beautiful handset at a low cost, rather than creating an Android power user's dream smartphone. How's it going, everybody? This is Matt D, and this is the OnePlus X. The first thing you'll notice about the OnePlus X in comparison to its predecessors is that the phone does not have OnePlus's signature sandstone black finish on its rear. Instead, the phone is made of a glass and metal design similar to that of the Apple iPhone 4 and 4S and Sony's Xperia devices. The phone has a 5-inch AMOLED display with a pixel density of 441 ppi. Above that, the phone features an 8-megapixel front-facing camera, while there's a 13-megapixel camera on the rear. On the right-hand side, the phone houses a dual SIM tray. More on that shortly. As the OnePlus One and its successor are bigger phones, OnePlus made a wise decision in placing the power button further down the right side of those devices. With the OnePlus X, the power button is about halfway down the side of the phone, below the volume rocker. To me, this was a minor annoyance, as I usually found myself unintentionally pressing the power button when I picked up the device. On the left-hand side, OnePlus has included its signature alert slider on the new phone, while on the bottom there's a speaker and a micro USB charging port. I'm not sure if OnePlus decided to abandon USB Type-C after the release of the OnePlus 2, or if they just included micro USB on the smaller phone to cut costs. Finally, at the top of the OnePlus X, there's a 3.5mm headphone jack. The OnePlus X is powered by internals similar to those of OnePlus's original flagship killer. On the inside, there's a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 system on a chip backed up by 3 gigs of RAM and an Adreno 330 GPU. The phone includes a 2,525 mAh battery. The OnePlus X only has 16 GB of built-in storage, but the user has the option to expand storage via micro SD cards of up to 128 GB in size. The phone offers the opportunity for expandable storage through the dual SIM tray that I mentioned earlier. Since the OnePlus X is a dual SIM phone, the phone gives you the option to dictate which SIM handles phone calls as well as which one handles texting and data. While the OnePlus X does not have the sandstone backplate that OnePlus's other two phones are known for, OnePlus does sell a handful of cases for the OnePlus X. Similar to the actual backplate sold for the OnePlus 2, these cases come in carbon fiber, bamboo, rosewood, black apricot, and sandstone finishes. As for wireless telephony and other forms of connectivity, the OnePlus X is compatible with GSM networks throughout the world. The critical thing to understand about the phone's cellular connectivity is that the device does not have support for LTE bands 12 and 17. In other words, North American customers on AT&T and T-Mobile US may not get LTE connectivity on the OnePlus X. The phone does support B, G, and N Wi-Fi as well as GPS and Bluetooth version 4.0. Also, unlike OnePlus's other phones, the X does have an FM radio. Just plug in a pair of headphones and they'll act as an antenna. Finally, just like the OnePlus 2, you guessed it, the OnePlus X does not feature NFC. The OnePlus X comes with OnePlus's in-house software, Oxygen OS, built atop Android 5.1.1 Lollipop. As I've mentioned in my previous videos discussing Oxygen OS, OnePlus's Android skin closely resembles stock Android while adding lots of useful features underneath the surface. While Oxygen OS is centered around the traditional Android home screen setup with the paginated app drawer, you'll find OnePlus's customizable Shelf panel of widgets at the leftmost home screen. While Shelf currently limits the user to adding multiple widgets to that space, I'm sure OnePlus's software team will add more features to the Shelf over time. Oxygen OS adds value to the OnePlus X's user experience by allowing the user to rearrange the quick toggles that sit atop the notification shade. Don't like the icons that appear in the notification shade out of the box? Oxygen OS allows you to hide certain icons if you wish to do so. Like the two flagship killers that preceded OnePlus's budget-minded handset, the OnePlus X allows the user to draw a set of on-screen gestures to perform various actions like activating the flashlight feature, accessing the camera, and playing music. One aspect of software in which OnePlus was a step ahead of Google was giving the Android enthusiast control over app permissions. Thanks to this feature within Oxygen OS, you won't have to worry about your apps gaining access to information stored on your phone that you'd rather not share. On top of the user-configured Shelf, notification shade, gestures, and app permissions, OnePlus's software gives you control over the color of the X's notification LED. Lastly, to take advantage of the phone's AMOLED display, you'll have the option to implement a system-wide dark mode in the phone's settings menu. Within Oxygen OS, OnePlus has created its own camera app for its new Android skin. By swiping in from the left side of the screen, you'll have access to several features including time-lapse, slow-motion video, and panorama. Unlike the OnePlus 2, the smaller phone does not offer a manual shooting mode, so if you buy the OnePlus X, you'll miss out on advanced camera features like controlling ISO, exposure, and shutter speed, among other things. As I mentioned before, the OnePlus X has a 13 megapixel camera and an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. The rear camera is capable of producing some great photos when the lighting is right. When taking pictures in low light, I noticed a fair amount of noise while using the default camera settings, but of course no smartphone camera is immune to that. When it comes to shooting video, I think that's where the rear shooter on this phone falls short. Way short. In the handful of videos I've shot on my OnePlus X, videos suffer from a lack of focus and slow frame rates. Honestly, some of the videos I shot with the OnePlus X were almost unwatchable, even with adequate lighting. I've got to say I'm quite impressed with how long the phone's battery lasted during the time I spent testing the OnePlus X. During a typical day of browsing the web, checking news headlines, playing games, and watching my favorite tech YouTubers, I got as much as 4.5 hours of screen-on time out of each charging cycle. I ran benchmarks on my OnePlus X using Geekbench 3, Antutu, and Quadrant. After running a test on Geekbench 3, my device received a single-core score of 906 and a multi-core score of 2416. After running tests on Antutu, the phone was given a score of 48,675. When running the graphics benchmarks in Antutu, I noticed that the phone was suffering from a very slow frame rate. Finally, using Quadrant, the phone was given a score of 24,133. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend running performance benchmarks on this phone. I ran speed tests on T-Mobile's network in 3 different cities across the northern side of Atlanta, Georgia: Woodstock, Sandy Springs, and Lawrenceville. During these speed tests, I got download speeds ranging between 8.55 and 57.32 megabits per second, along with upload speeds ranging from 0.2 to 33.92 megabits per second. According to the LTE Discovery app I have installed on my OnePlus X, the phone was running on LTE Band 4. As I mentioned previously, T-Mobile plans on rolling out LTE on Band 12, so I don't know how much longer these excellent data speeds will last. I also tested the OnePlus X once on AT&T's network and got a download speed of 4.15 megabits per second and an upload speed of 1.05 megabits per second. The phone was running on HSPA connectivity as the phone does not have support for AT&T LTE on Band 17. Despite the device's disappointing performance when I ran benchmarks, the phone handled several rounds of Leo's Fortune like a champ. I didn't notice any dropped frames, and the phone didn't get excessively warm. Playing Asphalt 8 on the OnePlus X was a different story though. The phone started dropping frames not long after I started a race and continued to do so until the race was over. The phone didn't overheat and the Asphalt game was not unplayable, but there was a noticeable difference in performance between the two games. As I just mentioned, the OnePlus X is not built for benchmarking. If LTE is a necessity for you, I would encourage you to look at other budget smartphones on the market. With the help of OnePlus staff, OnePlus forum members have put together a coverage map displaying locations in which the OnePlus X picks up LTE on North America's wireless networks. Owners of OnePlus's latest smartphone have reported a wide range of data speeds throughout North America. Some forum members were able to get an LTE mobile data connection, whereas others could not. I've talked extensively about how neither the OnePlus 2 nor the OnePlus X is capable of near-field communication. OnePlus's decision to omit the technology has been quite a polarizing issue over the past several months. While some people make heavy use of NFC through automation and sharing information with others, I don't think mobile payments will make a big impact on consumers and retailers, regardless of how much Google, Apple, Samsung, and the wireless carriers tout their own mobile payment solutions. After all, Google Wallet was not exactly a big success. Here in the US, I don't think consumers will use mobile payments regularly until America's mass merchants and grocers implement NFC-enabled debit readers in their stores. The cameras on this phone leave a lot to be desired. While I don't mind taking plenty of still shots with the phone's rear camera, I would not recommend regularly shooting video with the OnePlus X, as the phone just does not produce decent video even at 1080p resolution. Another minor annoyance is that the phone's capacitive keys are not backlit, so when you're in a dark area, it'll take a couple seconds to find the right key. Fortunately, OnePlus gives you the option to use standard Android soft keys instead. I like my OnePlus X, but I think the OnePlus X is better suited for the European and Indian markets where LTE is not as widespread and consumers want inexpensive unlocked dual SIM smartphones. Although the OnePlus X may not be a flagship killer, OnePlus has certainly proved that you don't have to settle with an inferior quality handset to get a smartphone at a cheap price. As always, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.